My name is Jed Schmidt. I'm Schmidt. I'm one of you. It's cool. We can be friends. I gave a talk here last year. Had an awesome time. And so I want to come back and talk again. But this time it's going to be a little less brain and a little more heart, I guess. I'm going to relate to you guys basically the only way that I know how, through HTTP headers. So I'm okay, you know, maybe not as tall as most of you, but I came here from Tokyo, which is actually where I live, and enjoy ramen a lot. I don't quite understand all these headers, so I'm just gonna fly through that. But if any HTTP guys want to talk to me after, I really, yeah. So, but I'm generally friendly. But for a living, I actually don't program. I translate Japanese. And so for me, programming is a hobby, and I love programming in JavaScript. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Also love JSConfEU. This is a great time. Seriously, line it up, line it up. Organizers? Possible crowd? Pretty good crowd? Food? Excellent food. Some of the best eggs I think I've had in a long time yesterday. Awesome venue. And really, the sponsors that made it possible. Seriously, thanks to those guys. One here that's actually near and dear to my heart is actually Google, because I'm staying here in Prenzlauer Berg, right down the street from their headquarters. It's like a total coincidence. No, I'm just kidding. I know that Google Hof is not the Google headquarters. I know that it is a German pastime. It's cool. It's cool. We won't judge you. It's cool. But we're going to talk about golf. And so if anyone here plays golf, you might be familiar with these rules. What's the point of golf? It's pretty simple. Well, the fewest strokes wins, okay? And so today we're going to talk about code golf, which is very similar, except it's the fewest keystrokes. And so specifically, here's how everything started in terms of keystrokes. Thomas Fuchs, a friend of mine, tweeted this thing, hey, Little Helper is a tweet-sized JavaScript templating engine. And I saw the code there, you can see at the bottom. And I was like, well, that's cool, but dude, it's like kind of bloated, right? I mean, you could totally hack like, carry the one, like 9 bytes out of that. And so that's the beginning of the end right there. And that's when I started code golfing. So this is back in May. And so that was the birth of 140 bytes. And so basically, it is a tweet-sized, fork-to-play, community-curated collection of JavaScript. Tweet-size in that every piece of code has to fit in a tweet. It has to be a 140 bytes. I know tweets are 140 characters. This is 140 bytes. Purists. Only ASCII. Fork-to-play, and then all you have to do is show up at GitHub at our master gist, fork it, enter the code that you think is cool, and then we will all curate it through comments and golf the code down as small as we can. And so we end up with this collection of JavaScript, which is pretty cool, and we have a site that showcases it. We have now hundreds of entries, which is kind of cool, and I'll show you a few of those today. But basically how this all started in terms of the history of JavaScript code golf, I think it started with the 10K apart contest where you had to build an entire working web app in 10K, which after seeing the next level of that, JS1K, 10K looks quaint. I mean, that 10K includes, they give you jQuery for free, which is like, and so JS1K was a fantastic contest, and like, I learned so much about JavaScript from not only from Peter Vanderzee organizing it, but from all these awesome entries in it. And so we thought, well, okay, let's take it down another notch, so that at least we can have all of the significant powers represented. And I'm pretty sure that we're not going to be undercut because it's really hard to golf 10 bytes of code because you can't even declare a function. So I think we're safe. So basically, here are the rules. It has to be a valid JavaScript expression, okay? It can't be more than 140 bytes, which looks like this. So after a function boilerplate, you have 128 left, okay? And the point is to maximize utility and minimize waste. The point is not the smallest code possible. The point is to pack as much punch as you possibly can into 140 bytes, okay? So if you go bang per byte, you know, kind of climbs, then it peaks and it kind of falls. And so right at that peak is 140 bytes. So that's what we're looking for. If you go slightly over, it's cool, right? But the whole point is go slightly over so that the rest of us can help you golf it down. And we've actually golfed down some pretty cool stuff, especially in the past week, which I will share with you. Okay, so no global leakage. This is something that JS1K doesn't enforce. The whole point is these small little snippets. I want to actually, it would be cool if we create like an actual usable library of code that you can just like drop in. And so if these things are all overwriting I or J, it's not going to work. So no global leakage. Also, the license has to be the WTFPL. Who here is familiar with this license? Okay, if you're not, you have like 5 seconds to read that. Yeah, it's pretty simple, and the guy indexes it 0, hardcore. Okay. And have fun. That is really important. The point is the, you know, this is not, it's kind of easy to get lost in once you start golfing and, you know, get too serious about it. But the point is that at the end of the day, this is a fun activity. So how do you play? You go to the site, you fork the master gist, you replace it with your code, you teach by annotation. Every entry must have an annotation, okay? So instead of like having, it's like kind of the opposite of what you would do in production, right? Instead of having, you know, regular code and then minifying it, you basically have minified code and you expand it by annotating it, right? So each line should have a comment. You'll see what that looks like. And then you tell 140 bytes so that we can tweet it up to the world. But why would you do this? It's simple, because small code means really fast downloads. That's not true. If you're doing this for that reason, I'm going to come and I'm going to hurt you, seriously. No, the point is to learn, okay? And the point is not only to learn, because you guys can learn JavaScript anywhere, the point is to learn the last 20% of JavaScript, okay? I'm not talking about, you know, prototypical inheritance and like any of that stuff. I'm talking about literally the dark corners of the language. So if you guys are familiar with the good parts, this is the bad parts, so. Wow, really? Applause for Crawford with horns? Sweet crowd. I'm going to put 2 check marks next to that one next time. But as my other favorite programmer would probably call it, not the bad parts, but the naughty bits. But this is actually, I'm sorry, this is an old picture. I think I might have something more there we go, more recent. So some examples, okay? We're just going to fly through these here. Yeah, so that was it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. It's okay. Good. I'm going to go a little bit slower. We're going to go like maybe like movie credits. So since May, we have accumulated, 200 and change entries. I think we're the most forked gist on GitHub. And there's people have been doing all sorts of really cool stuff, from the totally trivial. What is that? Vapor.js, yes. Actually, you really have to check out that one because it's not what you think. It's like it loads Vapor.js from somewhere else, and it's like this, we filled 140 bytes of just like the most useless code anywhere. And that was actually written by Malta, so you should definitely compliment him on his style. All right, so I'm going to show you my 5 favorites. Like, this is just completely subjective. This is what I really like. This one's actually pretty cool. Konami code. So you put this code in your site, and then up, down, down, left, right, BA will fire your callback. Right, so that's pretty cool. It's a fun little entry. But it's not just games. There's stuff that's a little bit, more useful. This is Felix's. Felix, I think, is here. Hamburg. Are you right there? Yeah, Felix. Shout out. This guy is amazing. This is a loading spinner, and this code is fantastic. It basically creates 8 elements, each with that little dot, and then it, rotates them. So you get this loading spinner. Actually, if I can maybe just show you guys what that looks like. There it is, right there. Isn't that cool? Oops. Oh, hey, what's up? What's going on in the kitchen? Where we are, okay. And if you like his spinning technology, you're gonna love Spin.js. Check it out. That was free, pal. Number 3, a 140-byte parser by Subsy. This is a guy, I've never met him, he's from Russia, and he's incredible at like parsing. And so this parses, this code that you see right here with all those elided elements in an array, parses Roman numerals into numbers. Incredible. Second, Game of Life by Martin. Is Martin here? There he is. Oh, yeah, it's Hamburg all in there. That's good. So check this out, guys. This is the Game of Life. You know what it is. I think it's like the most misnamed game in history because it's not actually a game, but it's a cool thing you can watch. Right? So that whole thing in 140 bytes, which is amazing. So good job on that. And then finally, and most recently, this is something that actually was only submitted last week, an entire Sudoku solver in 140 bytes. Right? Yeah. We'll talk about that later. All right, so that's the kind of stuff you can build. I'm gonna show you the 10 tricks that we learned from golfing over the past few months, okay? But first I wanna say two things. People who maybe might take this too seriously, I want you to know, the point of the code is not to be readable, okay? The point of the code is to be small. If you want readable code, read a Dan Brown book, you know? You have to understand, for me this code is very reasonable because if you look at the script that I look at all day for work, it's this, okay? So honestly, not gonna complain about 140 bytes. And also, I want you to treat this as kind of, like it's like kind of a warning, like you shouldn't use this at home, right? This is, you know, I wouldn't put a lot of this code in production, right? So, but this is just to educate you about JavaScript. So think of it as like Grand Theft Auto JS, where instead of acting out your minification fantasies in production, you do it in the safety with your friends. Because if you put a lot of this code in, you know, like working stuff, I'm gonna like totally find you on the internet and like troll all your comments. Well, I don't, someone will. Anyway. So here are the tricks. We're gonna take the tricks and we're gonna sort them. We're actually gonna sort them by level of WTF. We're gonna reverse that and slice it at 10. Okay, did the last one. Okay. So 10, spaces, no spaces. Spaces are not your friend. So, you know, that space right there, you actually don't need it, right? You can actually put anything that's not going to be an identifier right up against return or even type of, things like that. That was one trick I learned. 9, semicolons, no. Try to get rid of semicolons. I mean, I don't actually use semicolons anyway, unless I have to, but there's actually places where you can make your code smaller by writing it so you don't need semicolons. It's almost like giving your code a semicolonoscopy. Oh, there it is. Found it. All right. By the way, don't ever make a presentation where you have to Google like colonoscopy. Seriously, at like 8 in the morning. All right, so take this code, all right? So how, we've got that semicolon in there, how can we get rid of it? Can anyone tell me how, without actually changing what would actually happen with this code, how we'd actually get rid of that semicolon? Get rid of who? All right. Find subs is fantastic, thank you. Here's how I did it. Okay, so make that function a declaration, because declarations don't need semicolons after them, right? I didn't know that. Here's one. With document, open, then write hello, and then close. Okay? So now we have, well, this is actually a commascopy, I guess, but, all right, so we actually can make that shorter. But the only reason a minifier could make this shorter necessarily, the only reason we can make this shorter is because we know how this code works. And what we can actually do is move close over here and then get rid of that, right? So that's another trick you'll see a lot of. 8, loops. We can totally golf loops down. Here's some code. So what does this code do? Okay, we have an array, we have I equals 0, and for b in this, which is the global object in this case, set that index of the array to that key. So we're getting this as basically object.keys that works for everything, right? So we're gonna get all the keys and we're gonna put in this array, okay? But we can actually golf this down, and this is again something I learned only after starting these contests. We can actually switch these things. So actually the thing that's like something in something, that thing can just be anything that can be assigned, right? And so this thing, it'll assign it for us, which means we don't need that anymore, right? And as long as we don't need that, well, we don't even need that body anymore. We can just replace it with semicolon, right? And we're not done yet, because the trick we just learned, we can actually move that in over, right? So we golfed that down. I think that was 4 bytes, if you're keeping track at home. Represent. If you use numbers like this, quadrillion, well, you can actually make that shorter. You can golf one character off, that 15 zeros by using mathpow, but actually for decimal, we have a notation for that. That's very short. So you see that used a lot, the decimal notation, denary notation. Colors too, it's shorter. Decimal is actually even shorter if you use an operator to create that number, okay? Here's one, infinity, right? Do you use infinity in your code? Well, guess what? I just saved you like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bytes. And not only do you get 5 bytes for free, but you also get free internet points. As Matthias will tell you. So I haven't claimed mine yet, but I assume he's good for his word because he seems like a nice guy. Number 6, recursion, right? Oh, it's so much, your code can be so much cleaner. Like for example, if we want to get all the DOM nodes in a document, that's going to be recursive, right? We got a tree, okay? So we can write iterative code where like we could get, well, we have X, that's going to be the next thing. We have C, which is the first child, and then we have this list that we're going to accumulate. While C, we're going to push to this array, and then we're going to like traverse down, and if there's nothing down, then we go over, and then if there's nothing over, we go up, and then if we finally hit the last thing, that's when we're done, and so we return the node list, okay? Well, we can actually do that by just having a recursive function that says, okay, well, if the node list wasn't there, create it, and then, right, basically recurse. Okay, that's a recursive function. So, do you guys like writing recursively? Yeah. I know someone who's excellent at writing recursively. You guys want to see? 1 second. Sorry. She's right over there. Ladies and gentlemen, recursive writing. Sorry. That was a super, super cheesy joke. But seriously, oops, hey, let's see this again. That was fun. Remember that, guys? Hey, remember when we totally golfed that down? That was fun. This is the hardest working person at JSConf, so I just like a round of applause. It was fantastic. Awesome work. And she's like 10 hours straight without taking many breaks, so super, super props. All right, so next thing we can do is an outsource. So if we want to escape HTML, right? So we want to like escape something like that so it doesn't get injected to our code. We want it to look like that. Well, we could do it the way that Backbone does it, right? They use all these regexes, right? But if we know that we're in the browser, we can actually do it a little bit smarter than that. We can actually create an element, create a text node, append the text node to the element, write its node value, and then read the inner HTML from its parent, right? So that's a completely DOM-based way of escaping HTML for you, and it's for free, and you don't have to worry about whatever those regexes are, because if your browser can't do it right, then you're in trouble anyway. But it's actually, you can do it even shorter. And this is something I discovered like 3 years ago that I think it was Eli did this, but there's the option constructor that'll create an option element, and whatever its argument is will actually put the HTML. Like, what? I did not know that. So you can actually, that actually doesn't work in IE something. I don't care personally, but yes. So yeah, that was actually kind of a fun surprise. Or if you want to parse a URL, this is from URL library in Node, and so this code is good because it's written by Isaac, and it's long. It's really long. Our parsing URL is like super hard. It's like like 6K. Okay. But we already have a browser, so it's actually pretty easy. All you have to do is create an element and then set its href, and then you can read any property of it, because just like the location object, it'll parse that for you, right? So that's like a cool way to save code. Number 4, introspect, okay? I'm gonna get all bro-grammar on you right here with my favorite bro-grammar. What's up? So, you got the REPL. It's REPLin 24/7. And so let's grok it. Let's see what it's got. Take the string prototype, get the own property names, and see what we got. Oh, look at this list. Oh, I know these things. Oh man, slice, totally use that all the time. Char at, totally. Value of, oh my god, awesome. Search, yeah, to search it, totally. Wait, what, What's this? What's all this stuff at the bottom? Wait, sup? I'm sorry. Yo, sup. But Node is your homie, because it'll say sup, yo. Cool method, bro. Yes, there are all of these like relics from the 90s that lurk on the string prototype. So you sub, you can big, you can small, you can bold, you can italics, you can strike, you can font color, you can font size, and any size, I guess, and you can anchor. And actually, you can link, and I've used this. there is a 140 bytes entry that will turn a tweet into valid HTML. It'll take any link, any mention or any hashtag and put it in HTML for you. And we use that function to do it. That was actually very helpful. And then, come on, who could do without Blink? Like, what? Blink? What were you guys thinking? It's crazy. Yeah, it's the most fascinating relic from the 90s I've seen in a long time. Since the hit single Chumbawamba, Tub Thumping from 1997, I believe. Okay, so end programming. Thank you. Number 3, coerce. So if you want to get a UUID, you know what these things look like? Here's 20 of them for free. Feel free to use that in your code. That's a freebie. If you want more, talk to me later. This is version 4, okay? So UUID, there's all these specifications, and they have to do special stuff. But version 4 says, basically, almost all these things are just random numbers. So if you just have random numbers, it's okay, except for a few places or a few exceptions. So I was like, okay, I wrote this code, and I was like, 0, 0, 0, blah, 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 and I'm just replace all the zeros with random numbers using the string replace function. But then this guy, Subsy, came along, and he's like, no, dude, check it out. Look what I can do. Change the first 0 to 1 in each one of those things. All right, fine, that's same length, okay? Now add a string and then take a number, right? All right, so it's longer now. What are you doing? Okay, well, all right. Okay, so now he's using the denary notation. That's cool. And he's starting with a string, so everything gets coerced into a string. And he's like, okay, cool, now we can do a hyphen and then 1,000. All right, cool, but you actually can turn that 1,000 back to the 1E3, but then with the hyphen, it doesn't even need to be a hyphen. You can coerce a negative number, and they'll get the hyphen for free. Isn't that crazy? This guy's crazy. It's awesome. And you just keep doing that. Oops. Sorry, you golfed that thing all the way down. That is just kind of tiny. Anyway, so that was very, very surprising. Number 2, you have to exploit. So here are all the operators in JavaScript. Love some of these guys. You're going to have to really just exploit the heck out of these guys. They will do a lot of work for you because they're tiny. You want them in your code. So can anyone tell me, who can guess my favorite operator up there? Huh? Not comma. I'm sorry? It's the tilde. Hey, seriously? The tilde is the smoothest of the operators. Wow, I'm glad she had hits here too, because I was worried about that. It means it's a bitwise not, okay? And if you know what that means, you are way ahead of me, because I didn't. It inverts the bits of its operand. All right, whatever. Here's what it does, okay? In layman's terms, I'm just going to share with you. It turns anything into a number. So like a plus sign will have NaN if it's not an actual number. This thing will number anything, right? And it'll turn it into a 0 if it's not a number, okay? Then it'll add 1, and then it'll negate it, right? So like, why is that useful? Well, actually, we can do some cool things with that by kind of abusing it. So here's basically what it looks like, right? So tilde 0, -1, you can see the pattern here, right? But this is the coolest property, is that if you put an undefined, it'll be -1. So you can use that to floor. Instead of using mask floor, you can use a double tilde. And I'm sure Alex Sexton has a cute word for that operator. I should ask him about that. That one gets used a lot. You can also use 0 bar, which is cool. But also, the one you see a lot in 140 bytes entries is the ghetto operator, which is right there. Sorry, the ghetto iterator. It's right there. This thing is crazy because it does not care that your variable has not been assigned yet. It does not care. And so it'll just keep adding 1. So basically it'll like, okay, if the number is 0, it'll turn it into a -1, but it'll negate it. It starts at 1. So basically the first time you do this, it'll set it to 1. And every time you execute this thing here, it'll up at 1. Right, 1. So we actually use this in the JSON P code for 140 bytes. Okay, check this out, this is crazy. Okay, so you have a function. With document body, append a child, create an element script, fine. Set the source equal to A, which is the original URL, plus C, which we are setting to D, which was script, so we can name it, plus, and here's the crazy part, E.A equals -tilde E.A, okay? So E is the function that actually we're writing right now, and A is some random property that we never ever assigned. So this thing never knows if it's the first time it's been called or not, right? And so it just saves the state, and so this way we don't have to care. We can just like call this thing as many times as we want, and each time it'll set the callback of this JSON P to script 1, script 2, script 3, script 4, script 5. That was kind of useful. But here's the #1 dirtiest hack, and this was last week, and this is actually Felix also in back. All right. So this is the Sudoku solver. This solves your Sudokus for you. So you can stop sitting on the train or whatever and doing them. Just, fire this up in your browser. All right. Can anyone tell me what is funky about this code? Oh, come on, not you. You'll get yours later. Anyone? All right, here's the thing. See that U on the second line at the end? What is that? We haven't defined that. So what happens when you try to access something you haven't defined, right? Well, you fire up Node and you type U and it's like, reference error, U is not defined. Okay? So here's what we're doing. We're actually putting that U there because we get a reference error to stop the iteration. It's recursive iteration, right? It's recursive. And so we didn't have enough characters, like 138 characters, we didn't have enough to actually stop, so we just throw. So like you actually, to use the Sudoku solver, you have to wrap it in try-catch. There's a huge hack, yeah. That's Felix back there. Nice work, Felix. Hamburg represent. And so, so you can throw in 1 byte, which is kind of cool. But what if you're worried that, like, if you use this function elsewhere, what if U is already defined? Then what? Then it's not going to throw. Well, if anyone can solve this problem, it's you guys, because all you have to do is add an umlaut. It's a joke, sorry. Yes, probably the chances are there's a variable with that's E is probably not very high. So, so that's 140 bytes. The top 10 stupid tricks for 140 bytes that we learned. So we have the site that has all these things, and you can actually see them, and you can reuse them if you want. And we have a leaderboard that shows you all these people, many of whom are here, who contributed to this project. What's really cool about this that I like, though, is that it's completely dog-fooded. Right? So thanks to that guy right over there, Alex Kloss. Can I just get a round of applause for Alex? Promised him I wouldn't do that, but there it is. We actually reuse a lot of these entries to build the site itself. So the site itself is a single-page app that's made up of a lot of those entries, which is really cool. And you can tell in the source code it's pretty obvious when you get to the bottom. But yeah, that's kind of cool. And so what we've done is we've taken all of this golfing advice. Every time we discover a new nugget, we put it in the wiki. Oops, let me actually show you what that looks like. So we have a wiki page. Is that Game of Life still running? That's crazy. Yeah, so like all these things, all these tricks, so you can actually check those out. It's kind of cool. And then if we have a wish list, so if you want to check out, if you want to add something like, I think someone could do this, and they'll try it. Like we did this with a lot of ES5-ish polyfills. Disclaimer, ish. Polyfills, and we actually, we golfed base64 encoding down went to like sub 100 territory. So that was pretty cool. And so now what? How much time do I have? Is it written somewhere? 3 minutes? Oh, sweet. All right, well, so basically, I guess I'm out of time, which, oh, what a shame, I have no slides left. But there's a few things that I'm working on that I thought were kind of cool you should check out. The first is Kibby. This is something I intended to launch here, ran out of time, but Kibby is a JS1K web framework. It has everything you need. It has templating, JSON-P, and a router, and escaping and all that stuff, and so you can create a very a tiny web app with that, and it's completely self-hosting, which is pretty cool. I also wrote name drop, which is an incredibly crazy thing that basically it's a one function that's 100 bytes, and you give it anything, and it'll iterate through all the keys, and it'll basically scrunch them down to 2 bytes of JavaScript, valid JavaScript identifier, and then you can use that to not ever mention. So if you have like create document fragment, you just give a document to this function, and it'll actually hash that down to 2 bytes, so it's accessible by 2 bytes. I'm not sure whether this actually saves you bytes in the long run if you're gazipping, but it's kind of a cool experiment that I'm going to continue. Another thing you should definitely check out is JS Crush. This is poor man's gzip. It's fantastic. It basically, it's basically a very similar algorithm that just basically takes your code and just totally squashes it. It doesn't actually do it at JavaScript level, it does it at the string level. So it's actually very, very, it'll save you like 500 bytes on a JS1K entry, and so you'll see a lot of these JS1K entries actually use that, which is cool. And finally, my favorite, before you crush, you gotta uglify, and then together you can ugly crush. And so above is the library, and below is, is Marine's awesome thing that he's hosting that lets you do it in line. And so that's it. Thank you guys for listening. Any questions? Oh no. Oh no.
Jed, where does your fascination with small things come from?
I live in Japan, dude. This is like, it's so nice because like, it's finally, I don't have to be the tallest guy at the conference anymore. Yeah. And I get the enjoyment of having to pee up into the urinal, which is kind of a new thing for me, but that answer your question? All right, good. Any other questions? Awesome, thank you guys very much. Psych, bitwise not. What's up?
Are you looking at 140 bytes or characters? Can I do like a 4-byte UTF character?
So, I guess you got here late. No, I'm sorry. We're keeping it pure. We're keeping it bytes. Because, yeah, we're trying to solve a problem. Like, the thing about JS1K, it's really cool, but like, if everyone basically would, I mean, it doesn't make sense not to load JS Crush before, whereas the 140 byte is a really cool level to not have any of that infrastructure. You can't actually use any of that stuff. It's not gonna come in handy, because by the time you have this function that squashes your stuff, you only have 40 bytes left. And so, want to keep it super small, and I think it's actually a good sweet spot for just like straight up code that's not pre-treated at all. But yeah, so it's bytes. Anything else? Final answer? All right, thanks guys.